Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are inside and we are live, and we're going to be going into a subject that is very valuable today, and I'm very excited to talk about. Okay, so welcome in. So, what we're going to be discussing in our today's video is we are going to be talking about different forms of energetic vampirism that manifest themselves in everyday life and really going into some of the nuance of what some of this vampirism actually looks like so that you as the listener can understand more on what real vampirism actually is and the different ways that it's showing up in our everyday lives as we're here as human beings living on this planet. Okay? So, if you are someone that wants to understand the different forms and aspects of how energetic vampirism takes place on our planet today, then this is absolutely a video that I would recommend staying tuned for. And I will simply see you on the other side. Okay, so we are here, we are live right now. So, when it comes to energetic vampirism, this is absolutely one of the most misunderstood and misunderstood and taboo subjects that literally exists uh, collectively, especially when it comes to the nuance of spiritual self development and self development in general. Okay. So, first thing first, vampirism is basically a word that means very magnetizing and in some ways extremely absorbing. There is a consuming component, magnetizing, absorbing. We could even go as far as saying receiving component that comes into play with vampirism. And the general collective idea for the vampire archetype is generally going to be like a negative archetype of someone who is draining your energy and taking away your life force and kind of leaving you in a position where you're not feeling so good about yourself and taking advantage of you. Now, there is absolutely a reality to that, and that is something that is important to understand. So let's go ahead and let's start diving into the different forms of real energetic vampirism and how these things manifest and how it affects you as the person who is being influenced by vampirism. Because there is absolutely um, a negative aspect of vampirism where you are harming a person's authenticity. And then there is a positive form of vampirism where you are actually creating space for someone to actually know more about who they truly are and have more potential to embrace their own authenticity at the same time. Okay. So we'll start with the negative aspect of vampirism and what this generally is going to look like in your everyday life. So there are a lot of people who are unconscious vampires, which means they are kind of living their life in a specific way where they are trained through the nervous system from, traumas they've experienced in their past to have to consume and take energy at all costs in order to survive. So this is generally going to be someone that has been through severe narcissistic abuse or different forms of abuse that kind of leads them to a space within themselves where they feel like they have to do anything at all costs to survive, even if that means harming another person's innocence or harming another person's authenticity in order to keep surviving, uh, just to keep surviving. Now, often with these types of people as well, what they end up doing through trauma and through fragmentation is they go through fragmentation and then they start to identify with an aspect of themselves that is not the whole self. It is a part of themselves but they actually start to identify with it, which is usually a protector part, almost always a protector part, and they start to actually worship this part of themselves. And that is actually how this part of themselves protects them by kind of inflating itself and keeping emotions and keeping different vulnerabilities at bay within the nervous system, or basically, in other words, keeping these things repressed. So the person who is a vampire in a more so negative way is going to be extremely identified with a part of themselves that they think is the whole them, but is not. So this would be considered the false self. And they start to actually worship this part of themselves as if they are the center of the entire universe and as if they are the most important thing that exists, to the extent of being willing to hurt other people around them to continue inflating this false self identity. Now, with this form of vampirism, there is always and inherently going to be a need to see things in a separated manner. So this type of person, when they perceive you or when they interact with you, they are not interacting with you from the lens of, oh, you are a part of me. So the way that I'm treating you is also how I'm treating me. The way that they're going to be interacting with you is, you are completely separate from me. How can I manipulate you and orchestrate you and control you to give me more energy so that I can continue inflating this part of myself that I think I am? Continue feeding my false self. All right. So this is the general mechanics, the inner mechanics of what is taking place with someone who is an unconscious vampire, which means if you were to ask this person, hey, are you a vampire? They are most likely going to tell you, no, I'm not a vampire. What are you even talking about? Because this is something unconsciously taking place. On an energetic level, this type of person is feeding energy. They are literally taking energy from you as the target or as the victim, and they are doing it at all costs, even if that means they are damaging or hurting parts of you that are authentic or that are beautiful, beautiful, vulnerable parts of you. They are willing to take that away from you and use it as a tool to feed the false self. And what they're also simultaneously going to do as they're doing this is they're going to try to control you in some way to keep you as a food source or to keep you as someone that keeps feeding their false self. So once again, when you study the mechanics of narcissism in different aspects of, um, you know, psychopathy and narcissistic abuse, you're going to see a lot of similar patterns between narcissists and psychopaths and what energetic vampires are from a negative space, from more so of a negative lens. Okay. Now, I'm someone who was raised by an extreme narcissist as a father, and also, in many ways, a narcissist as a mother, but more of a codependent. They say every codependent is a hidden narcissist, and I would agree with that. Um, so I have firsthand experience dealing with this type of dynamic, and I know the effects that it can have on someone's psyche. And I know what it feels like to be under the influence from a very early age of someone who is very vampiric in nature. So, for me, as an example, my father, some of the things that I've been able to observe and that I've been able to recognize in regards to how he functions and how it has a vampirizing effect on people around him. The main thing that I've been able to notice is that he has a constant repression and a constant suppression of his own inner child with his vulnerabilities. So he is consistently finding ways to keep his nervous system in a stimulated state, which is like kind of like a state where it's always active, it's always in movement, almost like a fight state, a fight. Um, it's either going to be like fight or flight, but for him, it's always like a fight state. And what he's doing is he's keeping his vulnerabilities and he's keeping the repressed emotions underneath the surface that are connected to his own inner child from the traumas that he's went through with his family. And he's keeping these things repressed and he's keeping them suppressed. And he is choosing to identify with a false aspect of himself or a false part of himself, which is not a bad part. It's a part of him that had to create itself to survive what he's been through in the past. But what he's doing that is making this dangerous for himself and for other people is he's identifying with this part of himself that he had to create, and he's thinking and he's choosing to worship this aspect of himself as if it is God or as if this is the essence of who he truly is in all of his being. And that is where we get that worshiping of the false self taking place. Now, because this is what he's doing internally, which once again is not something he is completely conscious of. So if I was to tell him this, he would try to refuse it and try to deny it. Although maybe if I communicate it in such a way he would actually understand it, he would probably still deny it because it's a part of that protective mechanism. Um, what's happening is because this is what he's doing to himself, keeping this inner vulnerability and child suppressed and repressed, that is then having an effect on the external world around him when it comes to different environmental situations. And of course, when it comes to different relationships. So when you're someone who has a connection to your inner child, someone that has a connection to vulnerabilities like feeling your emotions and being able to talk about them, being able to express them, being able to have a curious and adventurous spirit, this is basically what he feeds off of. Because remember, inside of himself, he is keeping his own inner child suppressed and repressed in order to keep his false self alive. So the way that this type of vampire functions is they need to keep those relationships around them and the environments around them in a state that they are in themselves. So the way that my dad operates is he has to take away energy from vulnerability, from the inner child. He has to take those qualities and he has to learn how to manipulate them and control them in a certain way where they do not feel safe to exist. So this type of vampire is going to create a shroud. We could almost think of this like a dark shadow around the targets or the target or environment where you do not feel safe to be vulnerable. You do not feel safe to have an inner child. You don't feel safe to be able to express yourself in the full authenticity that you could have or do have. And this is once again how he's getting his energy because when he suppresses someone's false self or when he excuse me when he suppresses someone's vulnerability, it leads that person in it puts that person in a position where they are now having to basically surrender themselves to the abuser, to the vampire, and be controlled by them. Now, this is the one of the biggest mysteries, not even mysteries, this is one of the biggest reasons why people get hooked to these types of vampires. So clearly, I mean, like with the way that I'm breaking this down, you should be able to kind of understand within yourself. Well, then, if this is what's taking place and it makes me feel so bad, why do I allow myself to be around this type of person? Why do I always feel drawn to this type of vampire? Why am I allowing them to drain my energy like that? Jeremiah, I feel like there's people like your dad that are in my life right now, and I don't know why I keep going back to them. I don't know why I keep hanging out with them. So this is where it gets actually really deep. And this comes down to the fact that these types of vampires, the way that they operate is they almost operate on your nervous system as a drug. So remember what I said when I was talking about my dad and how he always has to keep his nervous system stimulated. Well, in general, as human beings, we actually really like when our nervous systems get stimulated because it gives us almost a sense of energy. It gives us a sense of life for a moment in time. It can sort of intensify our senses, which in many ways is like getting a high. It's like getting an adrenaline and a dopamine rush. And this is something that we just all naturally gravitate towards naturally as human beings. And there are healthy ways to get these stimulations, and there are unhealthy ways to get these stimulations. A negative, real energetic vampire is able to play on your nervous system to give you these highs to give you these raises in dopamine and stimulation that actually will make you feel really good, but then they will fluctuate. The vampire will fluctuate their behavior to once again bring it from that stimulation state down to a lower state from what you've ever experienced before. So it's like a very contrast let me make sure I say this right. Very contrastual jump from having a high stimulation to a very low stimulation. And what this does is once again, this confuses the target or it confuses the person that's being drained by this vampire because you feel so good in one moment and then the next moment you feel so bad and you don't even understand what's happening, but you're still chasing that stimulation from the vampire. You're still seeking it as if it is a drug. And this starts to cause a lot of inner confusion within the person that is experiencing this because the way that the vampire operates is they operate on your psyche as if it's your fault that you feel so bad. When in reality, the vampire is basically draining you the whole way through. And they know deep inside of themselves on a definitely a subconscious level and a intentional level that they are trying to take energy from you to feed their own false self to stay alive. That's the place that it's coming from within these vampires. But because of what they're doing, it confuses the person who is getting vampirized to start questioning, am I the reason why I don't feel so good right now? Because I felt so good with this person in this moment. And then in the next moment, I feel like complete shit. Am I the reason why I'm feeling like complete shit? And am I the reason why this person and me are not fully connecting right now? And what can I do within myself to return back to that high state, that stimulated state that felt so good? When in reality, as I'm saying, it has nothing to do really with the target and what they did wrong. It has to do with how the vampire, the person who's feeding on the target, is actually manipulating the person to go through these highs and these lows. So the vampire is responsible for that process. And this is just another way that they feed on the energy and they basically lock their target into place with this energetic draining dynamic. So just like a narcissist needs a narcissistic supply from someone who can provide that, or preferably someone who's codependent, a vampire operates in a very similar fashion. They need someone to consistently feed off. And let me say it like this, a negative vampire needs someone that they can consistently feed off to keep their false self alive. Okay. Now, of course, when it comes to the trauma aspect of things and attracting these types of people in your life, that is always going to be rooted in deeper emotional things. So we want to definitely look back to your past. We want to address some of these repressed emotions and some of the other traumas that you've been through that are leading you into a abusive relationship with this type of person so that we can start working through that and clearing that out of the nervous system so that you don't need to keep reattracting this into your life and you can start living in a way that you actually want to live. Okay. So that is definitely something that's worth understanding. So this is what a negative, oftentimes unconscious vampire is going to look like. Energetically, they are taking energy from you. They are taking source, unconditional love energy from your body, literally, and they are transmuting it into false self identity. That is, this would be unconscious, unhealthy vampirism at its finest. Now, when you are this type of vampire, when you are this type of person, you are consistently creating consequences for yourself because we are all one. We are all connected. So everything you are manipulating, controlling, and taking away from other people, you are also doing that to yourself. And it is literally only a matter of time until that comes back around and then you're faced with all the manipulation and all the abuse that you've put on other people. And I'm telling you this as someone who has experienced it myself, once again, being raised by a severe narcissist who is absolutely an energetic, unconscious, unhealthy vampire, a high level one at least. I have, in many ways, growing up, I had to become my own narcissist. I had to become my own vampire to survive my environment. And I have unconsciously went down that path of draining people in ways that were oftentimes not appropriate just to survive myself, thinking that that's what I needed to do. Now, because I'm a lot more sensitive and because I'm a lot more receptive as well, I learned fairly quickly that this is not how this is going to work, and that this is not how I'm going to step into my highest potential and be my most authentic self. So it became a gradual process of realizing the way that I was behaving was actually creating karma for myself, that was keeping me sort of like in a cycle or in a loop that I wasn't able to get out of. And then I started realizing I need to let go of this. I need to start healing some of these deeper rooted wounds and start facing my vulnerabilities and build a relationship with my inner child so that I can start moving forward in my life in a much more authentic and healthy way. All right. So, with this idea of the vampire, the unhealthy vampire, this is a lot of people in our today's time to different degrees. So, there are going to be some people that are very extreme with these mechanics of unhealthy vampirism. And then there are going to be people at lesser degrees with these same mechanics of unhealthy vampirism. So, it could range all the way from someone that you work with at your job, your 9 to 5 job, who generally has some of these tendencies of trying to make you not feel safe and take away from your vulnerabilities and kind of try to control you in that way, all the way up to, let's say, a high degree politician who has influence on the collective consciousness and is actively saying and doing things that are completely counterintuitive, making people in a collective way feel unsafe and taking all that energy for themselves to feed their own false identity. Okay. So once again, there are degrees to this. The person that you work with that's a coworker, they may just be doing this completely unconsciously, and it's something that they don't fully even recognize within themselves, all the way up to, let's say, a high degree politician who's doing this that is actually doing satanic rituals to further fuel the false self inside. All right. This can get deep, but regardless of whatever is happening and what's taking place, there are energetic consequences. There is absolutely such thing as cause and effect, and that will always stand the test of time. So if you're someone who wants to experiment with that path of worshiping the false self, do that at your own risk. And I promise it's not something that you want to experience. But if that's a path you need to go down, I completely understand it so that you can work with this. I know it's not easy for people that were raised by real vampires and real narcissists, high degree narcissists. I know that it's ingrained a lot of the times in your own body, your own nervous system to be in that to be that same way. And sometimes you need to embody that and experience that and then learn from it as it comes through and then learn how to integrate it and then let it go and then, you know, transform it into something different. And that's exactly what I've done. So we just took a nice dive into the unhealthy vampire and what that looks like. So, in contrast to the unhealthy vampire, what exactly is a healthy vampire going to look like? And this is absolutely going to be a little bit more taboo than what most people are ever going to understand. So, remember what I said vampire, the big V. Okay, it's funny. I live in a place called Vero Beach, and the abbreviation for Vero is a big V. It's like I can't get away from this vampire, dark feminine energy. It just follows me everywhere I go. Um, Remember what I said about vampirism. There is a receiving component, a magnetism component, there is an absorbing component, and there's also a consuming component. So, to be a healthy vampire is to first understand how we are going to utilize this consuming, absorbing, receiving, magnetizing component in a way where we are maintaining our understanding of everything being connected. So, if I am you and you are me, and I am energetically primed and I am energetically resonating at a point where I am vampiric, how can I take energy from another person, but also doing it from a space where I'm doing it so that it can help them in some way, so that it's coming from an intention of unconditional love? Okay. So that when I take the energy from them, it is going to benefit myself. It's going to serve me. It's going to empower me, help me become more aware of myself. And it's also going to leave that other person in a position where they can start working with deeper aspects of themselves and start a process of healing as well. So, what exactly does that look like? Well, the first thing that I really want to go into this with is the understanding that when it comes to vampirism, there is a huge difference from someone who is an unconscious vampire and someone who is a conscious vampire. Someone who's unconsciously a vampire is often going to be doing it from the lens, most often going to be doing it from the lens of an unhealthy, of an unhealth in an unhealthy way. Most of the times, people that are doing this consciously, I would say from my experience, are going to go through a process where they are going to have to learn how to do this in more of a healthy way. Because if you're consciously becoming a vampire, you are absolutely in some way going to be involved with certain spiritual modalities and spiritual practices that are designed to help you understand your connection with the source energy. Now, of course, with that source connection, you are going to realize that if I'm vampiric, then how do I use this in accordance with source energy? Now, either way, though, you can be an unconscious vampire potentially and use it in a healthy way. I don't see that often, but it could happen. Or you could be a conscious vampire and use it in an unhealthy way still and amplify the unhealthiness of using it consciously. That is a lot more common than the other side of things. Now, how many people actually use vampirism in a healthier way? It is actually few and far in between, and it is something that is quite unfortunate to see. But there are a good amount of people that are doing it, and there's actually a lot more people that are starting to use this spiritual way of being in the way that it's meant to be used, to create more harmony within the self and on the planet as a whole. As time is going on, more people are becoming aware of this. And in many ways, I do feel like I am one of the leading figures, that is kind of guiding people to these understandings and these knowings within themselves, not just coming from a place of worshiping the false self. Okay. Because the source energy, the connectedness of all things, absolutely needs people that are energetic vampires on the planet because we play a specific role in regards to creating balance with the human species as a whole. So we are very important. Now, let me say this. So, a healthy vampire is someone who is initiating themselves within the Qlippoth. This is going to be the darker side of the Kabbalistic tree. And what this is a reflection with the aspects of our own solar system that are clearly in relation to our personal souls that affect our DNA and our genetics, our energy fields, and then our emotional, mental, and physical bodies. So, going into initiation with the Qlippothic tree, this is going to be polarizing some of the darker, more repressed, more fragmented aspects of the own genetic code itself, where we are going to be able to have access to deeper portions of this dense and darker energy within the self in relationship to how we are channeling energy from our own solar system that is primed to take us to these darker places inside of ourselves. Okay, I know what I just said is quite a mouthful. If you have to listen to that again, then feel free. It's kind of a lot to communicate. I know it's a lot of information to process, but that is generally what authentic Qlippothic initiation is designed to do. It is a system of initiation that is not meant for everyone to actively initiate in. This is meant for certain people that are in resonance with this type of work. And going through that process, you are slowly and surely learning how to go through some of the deepest forms of real dissolving and real dissolution in accordance to the darker aspects of the self, the deep unconscious and subconscious aspects, and what these energies are also representing in our local solar system and in our galaxy as a whole. And you are channeling those energies to dissolve into that state of we could almost say, into the nothingness state that then allows you to see the contrast of what nothingness is, which is all things. So it's from the dark matter energy, it's from the dark space where then we have the stars, then we have the planets, then we have the elements. But first, it comes from the dark matter. Okay. So it's kind of like a unique process of understanding what true awareness actually is and what real spiritual self development is, going through a very intense, difficult, the most intense, the most difficult path of spiritual soul development to learn about the connectedness of all things. But from the difficultness of this path, there is so much room for refinement, knowledge, and understanding that is beyond what most people could ever have and what most people could ever even integrate into their nervous systems, because it takes a certain type of person to go through this initiatory system. And going through that system allows the capacity of the nervous system to obtain certain information and energetic influence that most people don't have unless they go through the system. All right. So, being a real vampire, a healthy vampire, we are going through the system of the Qlippoth and we are becoming naturally vampiric, extremely magnetizing, extremely receptive, extremely consuming, and extremely absorbing by going through this initiatory system naturally. It is literally a part of the process of working with these different energies in our solar system and within in ourself. We're connecting with intelligences that have higher density consciousness, that have lived for a very long time, that are also influencing us in many different ways to sort of change our energetic structure to operate in a certain way on planet Earth as human beings. Now, going through that process, once again, we are still learning what the connectedness of all things are. That's what it's all rooted in, and that's what it's all truly grounded in. So, what that means is that we are going through this process step by step, learning how to have this sense of unconditional love for the self, and then also learning how to have that unconditional love for those around us and everything else around us because we're all connected. So, doing that as a vampire means we are not here to drain people of their authenticity, or we're not here to drain people of vulnerabilities and innocence. What we're here to do is we're here to create balance by sort of absorbing aspects of people that we could even consider the false self, and then taking that away from them by draining it into the self energetically, while then creating space and creating safety for that same person to start feeling and processing the real underneath emotions inside of their system that are needing to be integrated so that they can be more authentic themselves. So this is literally a reverse form of vampirism from the latter of the unhealthy vampire. We are draining the false self that is existing inside of a person, which once again is a fragment within the psyche the person is identified with and is basically worshiping and inflating. We take that out of the person, energetically speaking, because when someone is worshiping the false self inside of themselves, this is an energy that is building in momentum inside of their system. So it's literally something that is um, multiplying and it's building in its strength because they're feeding it energy. They're giving it energy every single day through thought, through emotion, through action, and through spiritual means as well. And that is a dense energy that can build up very significantly over time. And when you allow yourself to feed off of that, or to take that, or to absorb that, or to receive that, then you can use that to your own advantage, and you can use that for your own energy as the vampire who's doing it, the healthy vampire, while once again leaving that person in a space where now they have to start feeling some of those repressed emotions that were driving them to be attached to their false self. And the more understanding you get with this process as a healthy vampire, the more you are trying to help people do this in a safe way. And once again, create that safety for them so that when you do take away the false self, you give them room to understand how to go through the processing, and you give them that sense of safety that it's okay to feel your emotions. Now, once again, it doesn't always have to manifest that way. If there's someone that's extremely abusive and they're identified with their false self as a healthy vampire, we can absolutely drain that false self identity attachment and we can leave them to process their repressed emotions in quite a way where they have to then face themselves and they have to be with themselves. Um, and that's always going to be a tough process for someone to go through. But at the end of the day, it does create balance and it leaves a mark on the person who's experiencing that in a deep way. So this is how a healthy vampire manifests themselves in today's time, which is playing a significant role of creating balance on our planet, especially amongst a time where there are so many people that are worshiping their false self and attached to their false self. And this is, a spiritual path to walk that is very taboo and very misunderstood. And once again, is not meant for everyone because you honestly don't need that many people to be this type of vampire, a healthy vampire, to create a balance within the planet as a whole. So when I say that, you could literally have 1,000 people that are energetically prepared and wired in this healthy way that would then counterbalance thousands upon thousands of other humans that are kind of stuck within themselves, worshiping false aspects of themselves and, getting to attach to those parts. Okay. So for people that are led to this type of spirituality and led to this path, this is a real thing. This is not something that I'm making up. This is not something that comes from a movie or some fantasy. This is a real form of spirituality. And in different densities, this isn't called vampirism. This is called other things where it's just a certain energetic resonance that has this quality to absorb and to take energy from other things to be used for more self development. And it becomes like a recycling effect. So I want you to kind of connect what it means to be a vampire almost with being a black hole. Now, being a healthy vampire is like being a black hole that exists within space because black holes, what they're doing is they are causing a consistent form of recycling within the universe by absorbing a bunch of debris, absorbing a bunch of stars and potentially different planets and other things that are in many ways needing to be recycled into this process of the death and rebirth cycle. And that is exactly what we operate energetically through as real healthy vampires. We are literally the death and rebirth cycle for not only ourselves to an intense degree, but for the planet, for other people, for other things. So, as a vampire, if you're someone who is walking this path or is considering to walk this path, it is absolutely a path that is an adversarial path and a path of catalyst. Because what you will find is that you will start to understand knowledge and you will have awareness where you are seeing aspects of other things and other people that are needing to go through the death and rebirth cycle. And your energetic resonance alone starts to initiate that process within other people, within environments, and of course, within yourself. So it's like you come around, and the next thing you know, everything starts changing in someone's life. You go into an environment, then you leave, and the next thing you know, something big happens in that environment and it causes a big shift. Next thing you know, you start working with some of these occult initiatory practices of Qlippothic initiation, and all of your repressed emotions naturally start surfacing up, and you start revisiting trauma, and you're starting to lose your sense of self identity, and you don't even know what's going on. And all you can really do is surrender to the disillusion and let go of what is leaving you, and or let go of what you're attached to. This is what it means to be a real healthy vampire. And it takes time to integrate this and it takes time to refine this. But the more refined you become within time, with patience and with consistency, also the more powerful you become as well. And vampires, authentic ones, real ones, have an ability to access some of the deepest portions of the entire unconscious and subconscious mind because what we're doing is we're working directly with the parts of ourself that are shelling us and that are keeping us away from vulnerability. And we are surrendering to the deepest degree that you could possibly imagine, which is why the vampire is intimately related with the dark feminine, and the dark feminine is intimately connected to the dissolving of the aspects of self that are preventing us from being able to be nurtured by the feminine universe as a whole, which generally gets us back to that childlike state of complete surrender and letting go so that we can be nurtured by the universe itself. So, with that deep connection to the inner child and the inner vulnerabilities as a healthy vampire, we are operating through the subconscious and unconscious mind of literally the inner child of the collective consciousness, while simultaneously creating structures and creating opportunity and catalyst to lead people deeper into their authenticity or into this vulnerability inside of themselves. And the way that that can manifest is not often comfortable. It's not often clear cut. And it's not often like, oh, hey, this is wonderful. I'm excited. Like, this feels really good. It can be quite scary and quite shocking to the system to go through an integration process of connecting deeper with these vulnerabilities inside of the self. And that's also why there's a lot of room for people to think that vampirism is just pure evil. And it's understandable that people think that because there are a lot of unconscious vampires and even conscious ones that are not using this in a healthy way. But once again, they're going to get consequences from it. It's a part of the universal law. And as long as you understand that things happen for a reason and everything's playing a role, then you get to make a decision for yourself on how you want to integrate and how you want to evolve and how you want to be authentic with yourself. And as I was saying, there are absolutely vampires like myself that are out here, energetically speaking, that are very healthy for the collective consciousness and are very connected to our vulnerabilities and connected to our inner child and are here on a path of true unconditional love, trying to develop more of that for ourselves and allow that to permeate through the collective consciousness. And it's a part of it. But also, like, once again, there is a destructive component to the vampire as well, towards things that are often resistant to the growth process or to things that are uh trying to repress what's important to be faced. So, vampires in general, whether you're unconscious, unhealthy, or conscious and healthy, we have catalytic properties to us. We know how to initiate death processes and rebirth processes within other people in whatever way we're coming through, in whatever way it's showing up. Okay. So that is going to be the big difference between someone who is a healthy vampire and someone who is an unhealthy vampire. And these are some of the prominent forms of how vampirism is manifesting itself today on our planet as a whole. I really shared those inner mechanisms with you between the difference of an unhealthy vampire and a healthy one. With the healthy vampire, we are using these astrological components that are vampiric, that are extremely absorbing. And we are directing that first and foremost internally, having to go through our own inner death process multiple times over and over and over, dissolving these attachments inside of ourselves, facing and surfacing repressed energies that we've been resistant to. And as I said, as we refine that and we get more aware of our own inner process, that then starts to significantly project itself through morphogenic resonance into our environments around us and into relationships around us. And it can get so powerful that you are literally affecting the entire collective consciousness as a whole to go through a deep form of evolutionary growth in correspondence to the person who's doing the inner vampiric work themselves. All right. So, with that being said, this is where I'm going to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like I discussed everything it is that I really needed to in this today's video. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Once again, there was a lot of stuff that I feel like I broke down. So, if you need to watch this over several different times to make sure you are really absorbing the information. All right. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button. That lets me know you really enjoyed it. Drop down, look, there's a little thumbs up. Drop down in the comment section and let me know if you resonated with this. Let me know if you specifically learned something from this, and just share your own personal perspective on this matter at hand. I would absolutely love to hear it. Make sure you are subscribing to my YouTube channel, because if you subscribe, you are further energetically connecting into what it is that I'm communicating. There's a psychic component that goes to that. So if you want more value from everything I'm communicating, subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell and get notified whenever I'm posting, because you don't want to be missing out on my content. I have so much valuable information that I am just going to consistently release and be putting out there that is going to, I swear on everything, change your entire life. I guarantee it. If you take in enough of the things that I'm saying, it will cause significant changes in your life. So get notified when I post, and stuff is just continuing to evolve. All right. Go ahead and copy and paste the link to this video and send it to someone that you feel like would gain value from it. So if you know someone that you feel like will gain value from this video specifically, I highly encourage you to send it to that person. Like, literally copy and paste it and send it to them. Do them that favor. All right. Now I'm going to take your awareness to the first link, the most important link within the description itself. This is my Patreon. Now, over on my Patreon, I have an entire vault of exclusive occult content. This is all, none of it is on my YouTube channel. So it's all exclusive. Everything from deep occult knowledge, ritualistic practices, education on initiation, Kabbalah, real occult Kabbalah initiation, what that actually is, what it looks like, more education on vampirism and actual practices, all the way down from nervous system regulation, trauma integration and trauma education. All of these different, literally most important avenues of real soul self-development are going to be found on my Patreon. There are over 700 members that are part of the Patreon now, and that is for a very specific reason. So if you want to take advantage of it, look at it. Tier number 3 and tier number 4 is going to give you access to something that is extremely unique to everything it is that I do. This is a ritualistic service that is called the Universe B Vampire Service. So this is an energetic transfer through ritual from me to the active receiving participant to help support you through the process of going into some of the deepest parts of your unconscious and subconscious mind to then surface these repressed energies inside of your system to the forefront, so you can start this process of transformation and integrating these energies. So all of these different healthy vampiric components that I've been speaking about in this today's video are going to start a process of initiation when you're actually receiving this ritual service. Okay. So with that being said, this is also, so I'm also creating a shift in the energetic body of the participant to be more in alignment with actual black holes in space. So I create a counterclockwise spin on the energy body of the participant, and it has that magnetizing effect where you start pulling in energy from dark energy and chaos much more effectively with less resistance, and you can integrate it and transmute it into authenticity and personal power. Okay. There are over 250 people that are actively participating in this month's service, and it's just continuing to grow every single month. Once again, there is a reason why this is taking place, and I don't know anyone else that is doing the service in the way that I do this. Okay. I've been doing it for over 4 years now, too. So over thousands of people have received it, and I've gotten tons of different feedback from people that have taken advantage of it. Now, with that being said, there is also what is called an Atlantean crystal grid that you are getting entered into as an active participant as well. This is a crystal grid that gives you an energetic streamline to support your development process going through these repressed emotions and these aspects of the subconscious, unconscious mind. So if that's something you want to take advantage of, definitely look into that as well. All of this is on the Patreon. The deadline to sign up for the vampire ritual is the 28th. So the ritual itself is performed on the 29th. The deadline to sign up is the 28th. So if you're taking advantage of it, the 28th of this month is how you can sign up. And then at some point, usually at the 25th, I will do a personal reach out to you if you are a brand new member, and I will get all the information it is that I need from you. All right. So once again, first link in the description if you're interested. We can go ahead and leave it there. Second link is where you can book a one-on-one call with me, or it is where you can book mentorships with me. If you are looking to work with me personally throughout a mentorship, definitely look into the second link and book with me. At this point, I'm already doing a whole bunch of different mentorships. It's one of the more intimate ways of connecting with me and me being able to connect with you. And it's something I'm absolutely passionate about. So if you resonate with that, definitely look into it as well. It is the second link below. Third link below. Oh, excuse me. Let me say this as well. You can also book a tarot card reading with Alexia, who is a very gifted tarot card reader. She can pinpoint where you are right now in the present moment, what you're experiencing energetically, and then what to expect moving into your near future, and relate these things back to the Kabbalistic tree. Okay, this is a really valuable reading to take advantage of, and she's really good at what she does. That's why I have her doing the readings for my YouTube channel. If you want to take advantage of booking your reading with Alexia, second link below is where you can also book that. Definitely look into it. Third link below is where you can join a Lucifer's Foundation course. This is a course that gives you 11 modules that you're going to have for the rest of your life that gives you step-by-step instruction to develop a powerful yet healthy relationship with the energy known as Lucifer. Definitely take advantage of this. There are tons of people that have purchased this course already. People are buying it every single day. So if you want to take advantage of this, third link below, and we will leave it there. Fourth link below is where you can become a YouTube member. Now, I would love to have you as a YouTube member. It's always nice to see familiar faces and having a community of like-minded people that can, just come together and be a family or be a group of people, be a community. And it's always nice to see that. So if you want to become a YouTube member, definitely look into it. It's that fourth link. And then you're going to get access to other benefits as well, which I'll let you look into yourself. All right. Fifth link below is the book recommendations that I have for you. If you are looking to study more on the system of initiation, Kabbalah, the tree of life, the tree of death, the tunnels of Set, the 22 major arcana of the tarot deck, the spirits, the demons, the angels, all of this potent occult knowledge, but now broken down in a way that you can actually digest and actually understand, this is where you want to go. It is a 4 ebook bundle that you will get immediate access to that is going to give you everything it is that you need to know in an understandable way. Tons of people have purchased this. People are buying it every single day. If you want to look into this, definitely do so. It is that fifth link in my YouTube description. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate all of you very, very much. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.